truth is in there. The T-files. How are you, Charles?
Very, very well done, Jason. I'm here in about as far away as you can get from New York City.
Yeah, Decatur. How's the weather?
Actually, it's more like it's closer to Melbourne, Australia, than Decatur, Illinois. But
But it's
I'm in a
important that
place.
you mention this, Charles. We don't want to tell people where you are, of course, but we do want to be sensitive to the unique laws in Illinois and wherever else you might travel. And so while you're on the road, we're going to be continuing to do these explanations in the First Amendment Forum. I meant these presentations. My brain is going faster than my mouth right now. But how are you today, Charles?
I'm very well indeed, and thanks for asking. And the art department is again outdone itself, and it's wonderful. The only sadness I have is that our viewers don't have the benefit of seeing literally the many hundreds, if not approaching 1,000 presentations that we've done since June of 2017, expounding on a raft of subjects where, in the main, the argument to watch our shows is that we're typically, certainly days, if not weeks, if not months, if not years ahead of the mainstream pack, weaving together our theories, our working hypotheses, our analyses for consideration by the wider world. And I think the significance of what's happened with the drop of these T files, the Twitter files, cannot at this stage be overestimated. I mean, this is a monumental development. As Glenn Greenwald has pointed out in an epic piece, and I didn't get a chance to watch his Rumble show yet, his new Rumble show, but in an epic dissection, vivisection, whatever you want to call it, of the hive mind, the mainstream press, who very clearly are working on what used to be called a journalist. They get their talking points, and to a person, man, woman, you name it, they come out with this instant dissection of the opposition and blast it to smithereens on the mainstream platform, such that anybody who wants to dissent, who has a different view, is immediately labeled a conspiracy theorist, when in fact what we've been dealing with is a gigantic conspiracy. It probably goes back decades, by insiders in this hive mind, selling a line of bullshit that the public is inclined just to accept, because the public, you got to remember, even in a country as rich as America, the public doesn't care. The public is much more interested in watching now the World Cup in America, generally baseball, football, basketball, you name
Kanye
it.
West meltdown.
Yeah, reading the National Enquirer or the Globe or whatever. They don't really want to get the public into the hard details. But this drop, and really, as you and I were talking off air earlier in the last cycle, because we're on such a different time basis, I was mentioning to you that what's really significant to me is that Elon Musk has in his possession, and has been analyzing using trusted people from likely Tesla and elsewhere, and maybe his investing side, has all the evidence he needs to lay bare the conspiracy to steal multiple elections, not simply 2020 or 2022, not simply in America, but around the world. The conspiracy, which is ongoing, to steal multiple elections and put people into the bureaucracy, keep people into the bureaucracy who can protect the co-conspirators, who can enrich the co-conspirators, who can keep all people who need to work for a living, which is most of humanity, down on the slave plantation as they loot and pillage and enrich themselves to their heart's content. This is a massive development. And after you and I spoke, I did see that Donald Trump is pounding the table, as he should, on Truth Social and elsewhere. And I think on not just Truth, on Gab, he has a number of tweets, whatever you call them, where he's saying, look, I mean, it's very clear that the 2020 election was fraudulently run. It's very clear now.
Hang on a second. This is what Donald Trump said. Hello, YouTube. We're not necessarily saying that, but this is the reason why we want to be conducting ourselves in the First Amendment Forum, because we don't know what YouTube is going to say about all of this. There has not yet been a response, and I'm hopeful that Crowdsource the Truth will still be here in some incarnation. Sorry to interrupt there, Charles, but I mean, this is the very reason why we want to use the First Amendment form. And frankly, Charles, I'm hopeful that this sort of tectonic shift here in social media with Elon Musk controlling Twitter. And listen, we got to look at what the guy does. There's a lot of people who say a lot of things, but this is a very powerful move that you could probably count on one hand how many individuals in the world could have orchestrated this.
Right, and it's more than a bit ironic. I mean, if you go back, for example, to the world that you might not remember very well, when I started at Harvard Business School in 1978 or Yale in 1974, there were a multiplicity of local papers. Time and Newsweek and Business Week existed, and they were read carefully. People actually watched network news. And there were, the mainstream media was left-leaning for sure, but they paid lip service to the idea that truth mattered and that we needed to bear into the facts. This was, after all, scant years after Woodward and Bernstein took down Richard Nixon. And journalism was a revered profession back then, where people got to controversial facts and spread them. We had the Pentagon Papers case and other cases like it. And instead of going down that track since 1974, 78, and 80, what we've had basically a constriction of the information flow, where it's not simply, and I think we do need to, and we will talk in the First Amendment Forum about Twitter, but it's not simply Twitter. The Twitter scandal is, I think, a limited hangout, as people are pointing out, that it's not just Twitter. It's Twitter, it's the mainstream press, it's Google, it's your cell phone, it's your bank account, it's the ability of a handful of companies now to decide whether you're a prince or a pauper, whether you're revered or reviled. And this is not, I don't think, what Thomas Jefferson and the founders imagined when they took down a corrupt monarchy starting in 1776, actually before 1776, but let's just use 1776. This is not what they envisaged. They envisaged that by having a First Amendment, having a constitution that actually was the governing law of the United States of America, that by enshrining the First Amendment as a very important, if not the most important amendment, arguably the Second Amendment is also important, but enshrining the First Amendment as doctrinal law, that the population at large would forever after have the ability to challenge the corrupt authoritarian impulses of the insiders, then of the monarchy, now of the oligarchs, of the tech and other oligarchs. And that has not happened, particularly since September 11th, 2001 in particular, where too many of us have willy-nilly said, you know what, well, why don't we surrender some of our freedoms, because people like James Clapper and Jim Comey and Robert Mueller will protect us. Bull fucking shit. And so this blast that came out Friday at, I think, after 6 p.m. New York time, I believe there's another round of Twitter files that are going to drop soon. I haven't seen the second round yet.
They didn't drop it last night. At a late hour, Musk said we might need another day or two. So it's not uncommon. What people are going back and forth on, and I saw a lot of chatter about it. It was very interesting. We'll talk about this in the First Amendment Forum in depth. What is really interesting in any exercise like this is not what is dropped, but what is missing. And what is missing are records of the meetings between Twitter and the FBI, because there were a lot of meetings between Twitter and the FBI, and likely with the CIA and the NSA and other authorities as well. And we did not sign up in America to live in the West Wing, that television show, which is entertaining, where the operating premise is that liberals and progressives don't need to really play by the rules because they have a noble mission they're on, and they're sacrificing their personal lives for the benefit of personhood. What I was going to say humanity, but then I get in trouble. That's just rubbish. The system that has been put in place, really, I would argue, since 1989, is a disaster for working people in the United States, in the West, and around the world. It is an utter disaster. People have no savings.
They have high anxiety. They have too much debt. Our leadership are corrupt and incompetent. Witness this buffoon, this idiot, Joe Biden, and a collection of idiots in the Gee Whiz 20. I mean, this is a bunch of numbskulls, from Justin Trudeau to How I Married My Mother, Macron, to, you just go down a list of these people, and I wouldn't put them in charge of collecting tickets on a train, let alone protecting us from dread enemies around the world. And we've got,
Now,
what
Charles,
do we have? We have.
Let me slow you down a second, because there's a lot we need to talk about in the First Amendment Forum, but I want people to know where the focus is going to be, because everything you're saying is absolutely correct, but you're on a bit of a tear, and I'm very cautious
Sure.
of not triggering the YouTube, angering the YouTube controllers. I think there is someone that we really want to focus on, not because he is individually so important, but because he represents exactly what you're talking about. And this is former FBI General Counsel
Right.
James Baker, who
Right.
I mean, there hasn't been adequate coverage of this. They're just saying, oh, well, he used to work at the FBI and now he works at Twitter. And people are saying, oh, well, that's fine. But we're going to follow the timeline of how this guy got to Twitter, what else was going on when that happened, and how, in my opinion, I don't know if you share this opinion, this one guy joining Twitter is perhaps our biggest clue to how much control. I mean, they're telling us there's no deep state. We say deep state, and the lefties roll their eyes, ha, 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 this is a QAnon conspiracy theory. But the fact is, we see how these bureaucrats from the FBI, the State Department, wherever, they leave the government, they go into the private sector, and they start doing these manipulations behind the scenes, and we get all these people on Twitter and the Twitterati news people that you're talking about who are just telling us, oh, it's a private company, it can do whatever it wants. This thing is infested with government agents. And Charles, we're going to break right now. People are going to be able to join us in the First Amendment Forum on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And just to address something you brought up earlier in the show, for people who do want to go back and review older videos from Crowdsource the Truth, Odyssey.com is an excellent option. I've been building up videos on there for actually several years, and they've just launched a membership program. So people can go to Odyssey.com, search for Crowdsource the Truth. When you click on the Content tab, you're going to get access to literally thousands of Crowdsource the Truth videos. You can search this library very easily on Odyssey, much better search functions than BitChute or Rumble or any of those. And great news, you can become a member on Odyssey now for either $4 per month plus a nominal fee, or $10 per month and a nominal fee. You can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth and enjoy sponsor-exclusive content like the First Amendment Forum. Coming up right now, I will not stop Charles from saying whatever he wants to say in there. So please join us. This is important. You are supporting independent journalism. You're going to learn what Charles and I have been talking about for the past 5 years, the past 2 years, and how all of these things are playing into what's being revealed right now and reviewing some of the things that Charles and I and the other guests on Crowdsource the Truth have been talking about, I think are going to inform people not only what may come from future Twitter files, but really what the meaning is of this incredible array of information that's been laid down in front of us just 2 days ago. Charles, I don't even think they've begun to scratch the top layer of ice off of the tip of this iceberg. We're going to talk about it right now. Join us in the First Amendment Forum. We'll be right back. Thanks for